So we are discussing about deferred tax. Deferred tax, right? Actually, this is not in the syllabus, but we need to know the logic because if there's a relationship between this deferred tax and the console adjustments, right? Whatever the adjustments we are doing, pre-acquisition, post-acquisition, the deferred tax impact should be adjusted. Okay. That's the purpose. Why we are having deferred tax? What's the reason? What do you mean by deferred tax? We have this standard. Right? Deferred tax. Case 12. Discuss about income tax. Income tax, right? Under this, we discussed about current income tax expense and future tax. Basically, deferred tax we are discussing. Future tax. Discuss a lot. Presentation, right? Presentation by product. Presentation කියන්නේ තමයි focus එක presentation දෙනවා ලකුණු ගන්නවා නම් එනවා. ලකුණු මිස් වුණොත් ඒක මිස් වෙනවා. ඒක ඕනෙ ගන්න. ඒක දැන් මට කියලා මේ ටීම් එකට හවසට කරන්න බෑ. වෙන දවසට කරමු කියලා තමයි. හැබැයි you are missing something critical. Exchange rate, foreign exchange. You can't learn that. Learn that for the degree, right? You have the real situation in future. So then deferred tax is again a kind of a complex area. We need to know the logic behind this deferred tax. What do you mean by that? What's the reason for future tax? Presentation after a long time. Oh, console madane. Sure. Danan bahar ito hadanga console madane blank. Presentation ni na lakong 35 console ka. Presentation ni kung dili common lakong report ka hamben no. Minimum kaya hamben. Ba miskan to degree. Degree corporate reporting name. You are missing console, you are missing corporate reporting, you are missing the degree. It's a post subject. That's why we are putting a much effort. You have to work on this. So then get together. Here we have good people. So then maybe 80%, 90%. You know that now. So then teach them. So then as a team, you need to learn this. Because this is the core subject of the degree. Corporate reporting, right? If you are reading for accounting degree, corporate reporting is the one. Okay, per tax again. We are having, different taxes, future taxes, different practical situations are there. Basically, the concept is matching concept. If we incur that cost, if we are recognizing a gain today, we need to recognize the equivalent losses around them. That's the simple logic behind this deferred tax. We are recognizing a kind of a loss. That loss creates a kind of tax benefit in future or tax loss in future. According to the current law, it will, it can be quantified. That pretty sure that will create a tax loss or tax gain because of today's transaction. If you are recording today's transaction, definitely we need to recognize that gain or loss today. Why? Today we are recognizing this transaction. Today gain or loss recognizing. Future maybe happen tax gain or loss. At that point of time, we are going to recognize. No point. Today we are recognizing the overall impact. That's the same. That's a pure logic, right? The root cause of this, having this type of situation, because tax law differs with the IFRS and SLFRS. Inland Revenue Act, IRB Act, in other terms, IRB Act differs with the LKS and IFRS. Because of that, tax profit unequal with the accounting profit. I think you are getting me. Because of this deviation, tax profit not equal to the accounting profit. Tax profit not equal to the accounting profit. So then, not equal means tax profit අපි කියන්නේ 100% not equal here. Some profit part may be included in there. Some profit part may not be included. Right? What can be tax profit is always higher. Accounting profit is lesser. Most of the cases, tax profit may be higher because most of the expenses, tax regulation not allowed to deduct. Right? Not allowed to deduct. So then, this difference, this gap, this difference may difference එක. ඒ කියන්නේ tax profit and accounting profit. අපි මෙහෙම ලියුවා. Tax profit, accounting profit. Difference. A difference can be divided into permanent differences and temporary differences. Temporary differences and permanent differences. Permanent differences and temporary differences. There are differences for permanently. There are differences for temporary. Permanent differences and temporary differences. වගේ පොණ්ඩේ කපලා දාන්න. temporary difference එකක් වගේ. ආයෙත් දෙනවා මේ ගන්න. temporary difference එක. ටික කාලයකට නැති වෙනවා. ආයෙත් back to normal වෙනවා. temporary difference. අතක් කපලා දාන්න. අත එන්නේ නැහැ. අත එන්නේ නැහැ. ගැපුවට. The permanent difference, permanent disability කියන එක. Temporary difference and permanent difference. Some of the differences permanent, some of the differences temporary. You need to carefully understand what are the temporary differences, what are the permanent differences. මේ වෙනස හැදිනු ඒවා සමහර ඒවා temporary වෙනස් වෙලා තියෙනවා. සමහර ඒවා permanently වෙනස් වෙලා තියෙනවා. ඒ ඔයාලගේ යාළුවෝ දෙන්නෙක් ගත්තම වෙනස්කම් කිව්වොත් කොහොමද? යාළුවෝ දෙන්නෙක් ගත්තොත් වෙනස්කම් කියන්නේ කිව්වොත් මෙයාට ගණන් පුළුවන් මෙයාට ගණන් බෑ. මෙයාට කොණ්ඩේ දිගයි, මෙයා කොණ්ඩේ කොටයි. මෙයා සුදුයි, මෙයා කළුයි. වෙනස්කම්. අර grade 2 වල කියන්නේ නේද? මෙයාගේ යාළුවගේ මේ යාළුවගේ වෙනස්කම් කියන්නේ. So the differences you can identify. So then you can identify what are permanent differences. එයාට ගණන් කොහොමත්ම බෑ ජීවිතේට බෑ permanent difference එක. කවදාවත් බෑ. console කවදාවත්ම බෑ ඉතින්. permanent difference එකක් යාළුවගේ වාගේ. temporary difference එකක්. හරිද? යාළුවෝ සුදුයි ඔයා සුදු නෑ. temporary difference එකක් නේද? හොඳට පීම් ටිකක් ගෑවම සුදු වෙනවා. It's a temporary difference. දැන් ඔයා ආයෙත් බැක් වෙන්න පුළුවන්. හැබැයි බිලින් ගාලා කන්සෝල් එකට ගන්න පුළුවන්. බිලින් ගාලා කන්සෝල් එකට ගන්න. You have to work hard. බිලින් ගාලා කන්සෝල් එකට ගන්න. That's a permanent difference. That's why I told you have to stay in the class with the hybrid mode to learn consolidation. So without concentrating, you can't learn consolidation. Right? It's a permanent difference එකක් වෙනවා. exam එකෙන් පස්සේ ඔයාගේ career එකේ. දැන් අවුරුදු 10ක් ගිහින් බැලුවොත් මේ permanent difference එක ඒ gap එකේ හැමෝම තියෙනවා. ඔය console ඉගෙන ගන්නද නැද්ද කියන gap එක. ඔය degree ගන්න දවසෙත් ඒ gap එක තියෙනවා. ඒ gap එක හැදෙන්නේ කොහොමද? A+ එකකින් first class එකකින් ඒ gap එක. ඊට පස්සේ තව ටික කාලයක් ගිහින් කොහොමද? ඉන්න position එකකින් gap එක හැදෙනවා. ඉන්න රටින් gap එක හැදෙනවා. ඒ permanent difference එක. Then if it is a temporary difference, short run. So then with the time gap, time pass, this difference will be vanished. The difference will be reduced to a very immaterial level. So then we need to identify these things. So the permanent differences, we need to confirm that we can't do anything. We don't need to do anything. These are permanent differences. Today we identified, no need to worry. These are permanent. These are temporary. Temporary. So then, what we have to do? Temporary differences, we have two classes. What are they? Deductible temporary differences and taxable temporary differences. Deductible temporary differences and taxable temporary differences. Deductible and taxable. ඒ differences නිසා මොකද වෙන්නේ? ඉස්සරහට tax වැඩිපුර ගෙවන්න වෙන්න පුළුවන්. tax අඩුවෙන් ගෙවන්න වෙන්න පුළුවන්. Deductible temporary differences, taxable temporary differences. Because of this difference, because of this temporary difference, sometimes we are paying more taxes, sometimes we are paying less taxes. What's the reason? Other gap එකක් ඇවිල්ලා තියෙනවා. අද ඉඩ දෙන්නේ නැහැ. government එකේ law එකේ. හැබැයි in future they may allow. At that point, that will be tax. That will be taxes. That will be allowed taxes, or that will be disallowed for taxes. At that point, example what? අපි හිතමු gratuity provision එකක් තියෙනවා නේද? gratuity provision එක අද accounting profit එකෙන් අඩු කරනවා. gratuity provision. Why we are putting gratuity provision for accounting purpose? Why we are putting gratuity provision for accounting purpose? What's the reason? Gratuity should know. Without taking deferred tax, first we need to know gratuity provision. What's the reason to pay gratuity provision? Today we are paying salaries. ඉන්ජිනේරින් ග්‍රැජුවිටි ගෙවන්න ඕන. ඒකට ගෙවලා දාන්න පුළුවන්. ඇයි ගෙවන්නේ? ගෙවන්න. local regulation එකක් තියෙනවා. අනිවාර්යෙන් local regulation එකක් තියෙනවා. We have to pay gratuity. Minimum last this month, last 3 months salary to permanent life, permanent period of time, and we have a formula, right? So they according to the local law. Right? So that's a minimum. Right? If you want to pay as employer more than that, that's up to them. If you have a separate agreement with the employees, that's up to them to decide. Right? That's a minimum guideline. So the minimum guideline, there's a law. So then, as a company, we have a commitment. We have a permanent staff. Definitely, once we are getting resignation, we need to pay gratuity. And then, at the point of resigning, we are paying gratuity. Once the number entry, cash credit, debit to PM. Debit to PM. So then, that employee worked more than 10 years, we are putting gratuity payment as an employee remuneration, not a remuneration, employee benefit at the last year. This benefit we are giving to employee who is 10-year tenure period, 10-year lifestyle. So then, if we are giving this benefit for 10 years, why we are putting that in the final year as expense? That is not good, right? If I expense enough, for the gratuity එක දෙන්න අවුරුදු 10ක් කියලා. ඉන්නවා ඉන්න දවස් ඉඳලා gratuity එකට expense එකක් තියන්න. That's called matching consent. Because of that, we are making a gratuity provision according to IFRS, SFRS. That's the basic for creating gratuity provision. After making that gratuity provision, again it's creating a kind of a complexity in the taxation. What is that? Gratuity provision is not allowed as a tax expense. It is creating a difference between tax profit and the accounting profit. Accounting profit එක අඩුයි, tax profit එක වැඩි. Accounting profit එක අඩුයි, tax profit එක වැඩි. ඒක තේරෙන්නේ නැත්නම් කොලේ වැටෙනවා. ඒක තේරෙන්නේ නැත්නම් කොලේ මොනවාද අවුලක් තියෙනවා. ෆන්ක්ෂන් වෙන්නේ නැහැ. කෑවට පස්සේ ෆන්ක්ෂන් වෙන්නේ නැහැ හරියට. ඔගේ බලන් ඉන්නවා සීන් එක කරේ. ඒක යන්නේ පොඩක් බලන්න. further study කරලා බලන්න, right? So then today, so we do accounting for the financial period. We can't wait till 10 years, 20 years, till the temporary difference getting set off. We can't wait. So then before we need to close the financials. To purpose of closing the financials, what you have to do? We select the financial year. At the year end, what we have to do is we need to recognize deferred tax impact. We need to recognize deferred tax impact. Why? Today we are recognizing an expense. Today we are recognizing an expense under accounting profit. What is that? Gratuity expense. Gratuity expense. Gratuity expense may be 1,000. But today it is not allowed for taxes. So then once you are putting this for your tax calculation, once you are calculating your tax expense, or make a deduct profit after tax. Profit after tax profit after tax 8,000 hours. Profit after tax 8,000 hours. You have deducted gratuity expense. What you have to do to calculate tax profit? We need to add back. So then at back and calculate the tax. At back and calculate the tax. And then calculate the tax. How much? 2,700. Calculate the tax and calculate tax expense. Again, we are getting this tax expense and put into the IFRS account sheet. IFRS account sheet. Are you getting? So the P&L, profit after tax. Profit after tax, how much? 8,000. Let's say profit before tax. Profit before tax 8,000 and calculate tax. Profit after tax. This is the tax expense. Tax expense was calculated based on the taxable income. Taxable income. This expense is not part of the taxable income. Why? The expense is not allowed for the taxes according to the regulations. Right? Now we have to understand that. In the same PNL, you know that this 8,000 was derived after deducting 1,000. After deducting 1,000. Can you agree? හොඳට තේරෙන්න ඕනේ කියන දේ. මේ 1000 අඩු වෙලා තමයි මේ 1000 අඩු වෙලා තමයි මේ 8,000 ඇවිල්ලා තියෙන්නේ. 8,000 ඇවිල්ලා තියෙන්නේ. 1,000 අඩු වෙලාද? ඒක තමයි අපි add back කරලා 9,000 කරන්නේ. 8,000 came after deducting 1,000. Gratuity expense. Gratuity expense already deducted. But for the tax calculation, it was not captured. It was not captured. Right? Because it is not allowed. Right? So then calculate profit after tax. Then the profit after tax again. Avulak thiyena accounting side එක. Accounting side එකෙන් අවුලක් තියෙනවා. ඒ අවුල හදන්න තමයි අපි ප්‍රශ්නේ. මොකක්ද අවුල? අවුල හදන්නේ කොහොමද? කියන එක හිතන්න. So what's the problem? How we are going to treat it? That's the issue. That's the logic behind deferred taxation. Simple දෙයක් කියන්නේ ලොකු දෙයක් නෙමෙයි මේ කියන්නේ. අර console perspective එකෙන් මේක අහගෙන ඉන්නවනම් අර intercompany NIC profit P&L එකේ මැදින් දෙකට කඩලා ඒ level එකකින් ගන්න එපා මේක. මේක grade 2 knowledge එකේ දෙයක් මේ කියන්නේ. මේක තේරෙන්නේ නැහැ කියලා හිතනවනම් මම මේ ලෝකෙ නෙමෙයි ඉන්නේ. කාලා full අවුලලා ඉන්න දැන්. එක්කෝ group presentation perspective එකේ ඒ mood එකේ ඉන්නේ. ඒක තේරෙන්නේ නැති දෙයක්වත් එහෙම දෙයක් නෙමෙයි. මේ ගැන හරි සරල දෙයක්. Gratuity expense කියන එක කියලා දුන්න logically ඇයි deduct කරන්න කියන එක. Gratuity expense is a P&L item already deducted once you are calculating this 8,000, right? 8,000, and then this is profit before tax, and we need to calculate taxation. අපිට දෙලින්ම මේකට 30 ගහලා ගන්න බෑ. What we have to do? We have to do with separate calculation, allowable, disallowable, and then get the taxable liability and calculate the 30%. Get the tax expense, put in here, and then get the profit after tax. So then logic is, we have paid this, we have done a kind of a provision here, but we have not provided tax here because it's not allowed. So then accounting perspective, as accountant, We can't do that. We can't depend on these tax people. What we have to do? Because of this 1,000, in future, you have a kind of a benefit. You have a kind of a benefit. You can deduct it in near future. Once this employee getting resigned, at that point, we are paying out the gratuity. At that point, we can deduct from the taxation. Right? We can deduct from the taxation. So then we can deduct from taxation. It means it's creating a benefit to the company. Today we are putting an expense. That benefit should be recorded today. Right? So then for the gratuity provision, gratuity expense, we are putting a deferred tax entry, deferred tax asset. What is that asset? So for 4,000 into 30%. 1,000 into 30%. 300. Deferred tax asset. Deferred tax asset. Debit 300. Tax expense. Credit 300. Deferred tax asset. Debit 300. Tax expense. Credit 300. Tax expense. Credit 300. Tax expense. Credit 300. What do you mean by that? For this year, we are putting credit in for here. Credit entry. Tax expense credit. Tax expense credit means tax expense का भी काम आडू करना. Tax expense का आडू करना. Right? So then, actual tax expense should be less than that. Why? We have another benefit. We don't need to deduct 2,700. Why? Here we have deducted 1,000. We have deducted 1,000. For that 1,000, we have a gain of tax 300. That gain should be adjusted to here. Tax gain. Because we have already provided this 1,000 in the P&L as expense. As expense. Because of this expense, we are getting a future benefit of 300. Tax benefit. That benefit adjusted to taxes. Now accounting perspective, it's very clear. It's very clear. Instead of now accounting, net impact was adjusted. What's the net impact of the P&L? 700,000. 700,000. That is the deferred tax whole perspective. Whole perspective of deferred tax. ඒක තේරුම් නැත්තම්. ඒක තේරුනේ නැත්තම්. ඒවා පුත මේක ගොඩාක් කියලා මෙහෙම කියලා මුකුත් තේරුම් නැහැ. එහෙම තේරුම් නැහැ කියලා හිතනවා. Right? එහෙම තේරුනේ නැත්තම්. Right? What are the land එකක් තියෙනවා. land එක සාමාන්‍යයෙන් revalue කරනවා. land එක revalue කරනවා. land එක revalue කරනකොට according to the LKS 16 you can use revaluation model, right? ඒක දන්නවා. and revaluation gain account credit, land account debit. Simple. You are recognizing a gain in your books. Gain in your books. For a tax එකට කොහොමද? tax එකට gain එක tax කරලා අද tax එකක් pay කරනවද අද books වල? Are you paying taxes to the income revenue department? Pay කරන්නේ tax එකක් නෙවෙයි. evaluation එකට tax එක pay කරන්නේ කොහොමද? Realize when the at the point of realization. Or land එක සමහරවිට parking මේ parking dispose කරනවා නාටි ගින් එක. අන්න ගින් එක තමයි tax එකක් ගෙවන්න. එහෙනම් අවුරුදු 5කින් උන tax එකක් ගෙවන්න. 5කින් දන්නේ නැහැ විකුණයිද කියලා. අපි හිතනවා 5කින් විකුණුවා කියලා. 5කින් විකුණනකොට අපි හිතනවා tax rate එක තාමත් 30%. හරි 30%. ඒ gain එක land එක 5000. revaluation එක 6000. other gain එක 1000. gain එකට 30%. 300 tax එකක් අවුරුදු 5කින් ගෙවන්න. අවුරුදු 5කින් තමයි ගෙවන්නේ. realize වෙන්නේ. අද අපි revaluation gain එක book කරගන්න. අද gain එක book කරගන්න entry එක. අද gain එක book කරගන්න entry එක land එක debit. credit revaluation reserve 1000. then මේ 1000 එක හොඳ. land එක debit, revaluation reserve credit. So then we increase the asset, increase the equity. So because of this increase in tax perspective, today we have to book a kind of a loss. So the future loss, this tax expense, if you are recognizing a gain, particular gain, or a gain එකක් කොහොමද fair value කරලා නේද market value බලලා ඒ gain එකක් නම් ගත්තේ because of this gain. If you have a future tax loss, that also should be recorded. How we are going to record that? It's a liability. It's a liability. Deferred tax liability. Deferred tax liability credit. Deferred tax liability credit 300. Deferred tax liability credit 300. Credit deferred tax liability credit, deferred tax expense debit 300. Right? This revaluation gain should be set off with this loss. This revaluation gain should be net off with this deferred tax impact today. Today, this deferred tax impact should be adjusted to the books. That's all about deferred taxation. So, මේ 1000 revaluation book කරනකොට 300ක් මොකද්ද කරන්න ඕන? Deferred revaluation gain එක book කරනකොට gain එක අවුරුදු 5කින් ගෙවන්න වෙන tax එකට loss එකක් අද කරන්න. ඒක loss එක book කරන්න කොහොමද? Tax payable credit, deferred tax liability credit, debit to tax expense. What make it net off run? What is the net revaluation gain after deducting deferred tax? 700. Net deferred tax impact. Right. So then we have a deferred tax liability in the books. So after 5 years, once you are paying your deferred tax liability, what's the double entry? Cash credit, debit to this account. Debit to this account. Simple deferred tax account. Deferred tax liability accounts can be. That's a simple logic behind deferred tax. Make a statement that deferred tax amadala. Why we should have deferred tax? To streamline accounting, expenses and income with the tax regulation and IFRS. IFRS always says if you are recognizing an income, related expenses should be recognized to this year. If it is so, we need to have proper evaluation of tax treatment, whether temporary or permanent, and recognized today. That's all about deferred taxes, right? Okay, then you are okay with this. ටිකක් ස්ටඩි කරන්න. So then, once you are doing your console adjustment, right? Console adjustments, there may be post acquisition and pre acquisition. So then post acquisition DT, pre acquisition DT related, this DT will be adjusted to the goodwill. Adjusted to the goodwill. Goodwill and goodwill, goodwill, DAO, DL, right? Post acquisition na, post acquisition na, post acquisition na, paano gumamit nila? Post acquisition na, then හතරකට impact කරන්න පුළුවන්. හතරක් කියන්නේ මොනවද? එකක් deferred tax asset. එකක් deferred tax liability. එකක් console return. එකක් subsidiary return. මේ හතරට impact වෙන්න පුළුවන්. ඔයාගේ entry එක. හැබැයි ඔයා එන entry එක post acquisition DT related. Post acquisition entry එක DT related කියන එක, in other words what is that? In other words what is that? Temporary difference. DT related කියන්නේ මොකද්ද? Because of whatever the entry you are passing, it will create a temporary difference. Temporary difference එකක් create වෙනවා නම්, so then check whether it's a deferred tax asset. Deferred tax asset will create asset debit credit to maybe control consolidated earnings or subsidiary return earnings, depends on the entry. Depends on the scenario. ඒක අපිට කියන්න බෑ කොතනින්ද එන්නේ කියලා. ඒක entry එක ගන්න තියන්න. ඔයා දාන්නේ කලින් දාපු entry එකේ deferred tax treatment එකක් තියෙනවා නම් ඒ entry එකේ ඒ දාපු තැන අනිත් පැත්තට treat කරන්න. ඔයා consolidated earnings debit නම් උනේ කලින් entry එක deferred tax impact එක දුන්නා. Entry එකේ amount එක into tax rate opposite side එක වෙන්න ඕන. හරි සරලයි. So then you know that set of control adjustments. අපි දැන් මේවයි intercompany expenses ඒවා මුකුත් වෙන්නේ නැහැ. intercompany charges ඒවා මුකුත් වෙන්නේ නැහැ. හැබැයි tax එකත් එක්ක differences create වෙනවා වගේ දේවල් තියෙනවා නම් you have to careful. You have to be very careful once you are doing your adjustment. So then ඔයා මෙතන deferred tax asset එක create කරනවා, deferred tax liability create කරනවා. කරලා goodwill එක ගන්න. ඒ account එකටම ඔයාලට deferred tax asset liabilities ගන්න පුළුවන්. Right. Other thing is other point. ඒක පොඩ්ඩක් complex වෙනවා හැබැයි what are deferred tax asset liabilities එහෙම આવොත් දැන් entries දෙක තුනකින් asset liabilities එනවා asset liabilities එනවා some of them are relating to consolidated some of them are related to subsidies so the entries liability subsidies ටිකයි also parent ටිකයි ඇවිල්ලා but as asset liabilities so to set off කරලා වෙන්නන්නේ කොහොමද asset liabilities එක account එකේ පෙන්නන්න වෙනවා ඒක වෙන question එකක් ඔයාලට මේ present කරන විදිය කියන්නේ right so then here after doing all the adjustments you have a deferred tax asset account and the deferred tax liability. Deferred tax asset account and the liability account. So my request is keep deferred tax asset account for parent, subsidiary, parent and subsidiary. Parent, subsidiary. So your deferred tax asset account and liability account are be set off in between parent and the subsidiary. In between parent and the subsidiary, you can't set off your deferred tax asset and the deferred tax liability accounts. Keep in mind. That's very important. ඇයි එහෙම කරන්න බැරි? දැන් හොඳ කවුන්ටින් නේවා. ඒ කියන්නේ ඔයා දැන් ඔයා annual report marking ගියාම balance sheet එකේ උඩ deferred tax asset එකකුත් තියෙනවා. ඊට deferred tax liability. අපේ company එකේ parent company එකේ එකයි තියෙන්නේ. Also like it like it. chartered accountant කෙනෙක් වෙලා මෙහෙමයි. ඒ කියන්නේ ඒ ප්‍රශ්නෙට answer එක හොයාගන්නේ practically ඔයා face කරන දා මම කියන්නේ. ඔයා chartered accountant කෙනෙක් වුණාම ඔයාට එනවා mail එකක්. මොකද්ද mail එක? ඔයා membership division එකත් එක්ක තමයි ඊට පස්සේ deal කරන්නේ. අර වාගේ student service එකත් එක්ක delay වෙවි all track එකේ ඉන්න ඕනේ නැහැ. අදාළ phone එක answer කරනවා members. service එක වෙනස්. student service එකට වඩා වෙනස් members වගේ service එක. ඒකයි කියන්නේ chartered accountant කෙනෙක් වෙන්න කියන්නේ. සෑහෙන්න වෙනස් member service. member කෙනෙක් වුණාම hina වෙන student කෙනෙක් වෙච්ච hina වෙන විදියට නෙවෙයි member කෙනෙක් වුණාම student කෙනෙක් විදියට එනකොට institute එක පිළිගන්න විදිය නෙවෙයි member කෙනෙක් වුණාම පිළිගන්න. එන්න sir කියලා ගන්න. ගණන් ගන්න නැහැ institute කාලේ බැලුවේ ඉලවලත් ඉතින් මට එන්න එපා මම හිතන්නේ institute එකට. තව student කාලේ. දැන් එක බලන්න. ඊළඟවා එන්නේ නැත්නම් අදවත් කියලා අහන ස්ටුඩන්ට්ස්. ඒක වෙනස් කරන්න පුළුවන්. ඒක බාරේ වෙනස් කරන්න බෑ. එතකොට කොහොමද එහෙම ඉන්නකොට වාට වගේ මේල් එකකට එනවා රික්වෙස්ට් එකක්. So then you are eligible for this year annual report marking. Are you interested to register? වා දාන ඔව් මම අතේ chartered accountant උනේ. ආපු පළවෙනි මේල් එක මම register වෙන annual report marking වල. ඒ කියන්නේ tag competition. ඒ කියන්නේ island wide annual report වලට දෙන award ceremony එකේ chartered accountant වල තමයි annual report evaluation කරන්නේ. කියන්නේ සේරම disclosure one by one mark කරලා rate කරලා marks දීලා evaluate කරන්නේ. ඒකට වාට sectors වලට බෙදෙනවා groups වලට. groups leaders ලා ඉන්නවා. වාට annual report ඉතින් ඔයාලා සම්පූර්ණේ plantation sector එකේ දැන් දැන් කරන්නේ hospital හරි මොනවා හරි group එකක් analyze කරලා ඒ කියන්නේ ratio analysis එකක් කරලා ඒ වගේ දෙයක් තමයි කරන්නේ. ඒක වාට දැන් මතක් සම්පන්නට අමතක දැන් ඒක නැති නිසා පොඩ අමතක වෙයි දන්නේ ඒකම තමයි වැඩ කරන්නේ. වාට දෙන real group එකකට ස්ටාර්ට් වෙනවා. වාට annual report තුනක් විතර හම්බ වෙනවා. ඒ annual report තුන සම්පූර්ණයෙන් මාක් කරනවා. marking scheme එක. one by one කියලා මාක් කරනවා. කරලා marks දෙන්නවා. මේ disclosure එක මෙතන තියෙනවා නම් ලකුණු දෙකක් තුනක් ඒක තියෙනවා. ඒ marks දුන්නම marks වලට ඕනෝට දෙන්නත් බෑ. ඊට පස්සේ team leader කටියත් එක මොඩරේට් කරන්න. ඇයි ඔයා ඒක දුන්නේ mark? ඇයි ලකුණු තුනක් දුන්නේ? ඇයි segmental information එක මෙච්චර sophisticated අරකට වඩා? ඇයි ඔයා පහක් දුන්නේ? ඇයි ඔයා තුනක් දුන්නේ? කියලා round table එකකින් ඉඳගෙන team එක discuss කරන්න. ඒක තමයි කියන්නේ moderation. team leader ඉන්නවා. sec එක moderate කරනවා. annual report. එතකොට annual report marking එකේ දැන් මම ගොඩක් මේ annual report marking topic එකක් වෙනවා ආයෙත් වෙන topic එකක්. ඒකේ ඔයාලට බලනකොට balance sheet එක බලනකොට තියෙනවා deferred tax වලට minimum section එකක් තියෙනවා. එතකොට ඔයා ගන්න group එකේ company එකේ balance sheet එක බලනකොට ඔයාලට තියෙනවා parent column එකක්. parent column එකක් තියෙනවා. ඊට පස්සේ තියෙනවා console or group column එක. එහෙම තමයි balance sheet එක. statement of financial position. statement of financial position. Right? This is assets and liabilities. Asset and liabilities. මෙතන තියෙනවා deferred tax. deferred tax. මෙතන තියෙනවා deferred tax. මෙතන තියෙනවා මෙතන නෑ. මෙතන තියෙනවා මෙන්න මේ ප්‍රශ්නෙට උත්තරේ හොයන්න තමයි ඔයාලට හිතෙන්නේ. අප්ප වැරදිලා නැහැ. කම්පැනි එකේ නැද්ද ඇසට් එක? එන ප්‍රශ්නේ මොනවද? කම්පැනි එකේ ඩිෆර්ඩ් ඇසෙට් බුක් කරලා නැද්ද? ලයබිලිටි විතරද බුක් කරලා තියෙන්නේ? එන ප්‍රශ්නේ. අනේ මේ සබ්සිඩියරිස් වල ඇසෙට් එකයි ලයබිලිටි එකයි සෙට් අවුට් කරලා නැහැ. ඇසෙට් එකයි ලයබිලිටි එකයි දෙකම දාලා. ඉතින් ඇසෙට් එකයි ලයබිලිටි එක එකම දෙන්නේ. සෙට් අවුට් කරලා දාන්න. මෙන්න මේ ප්‍රශ්නේ දැක්කම ඔයාලට මොනවද හිතෙන්නේ කියලා තමයි මොනවද? ඔහොම තමයි ඕනනම් group balance sheet එකක් ගත්තොත් මේ විදිහට තමයි වෙන්නේ. මොකද තියෙන්නේ? parent company එකේ එක්ක තියෙන deferred asset එකක් එක්ක තියෙන liability එකක්. වැඩිපුරම තියෙන්නේ මොකක්ද? වැඩිපුරම තියෙන්නේ මොකක්ද? deferred tax liability එක. ඇයි deferred tax liability එකක්? අපි වැඩිපුර profit අපි අඩු වැඩිපුර provision එක වැඩිපුර දාන්න. මොකද අපි වැඩිපුර expenses දාලා තියෙනවා. ඉතින් expenses දාන්න දෙන්නේ ඉස්සරහට අපිට වැඩිපුර liability එකක් තියෙනවා pay කරන්න. PPN එක්ක. deferred tax liability එකක් අපි ගොඩක් හරි. deferred tax asset එකට වඩා. හැබැයි subsidy එක ගත්තම group column එක ගත්තම asset එකේ liability එකේ දෙකක් තියෙනවා. set off කරන්න නැහැ. ඇයි set off කරන්න බැරි? ඇයි set off කරන්න නැත්තේ? Reason එක හොයන්න ගන්න. What the reason එක? What's the reason? That's the reason I am discussing here this point. What's the reason? This column consists with different parties, including parent plus different subsidiaries and different subsidiaries. Okay, different subsidiaries. Some subsidiaries may have deferred tax asset. Some subsidiaries may have deferred tax liability. So, as a one single entity with the internal revenue department, they have one relationship. Parent company having one relationship with the IRD. Other companies having different relationship with the IRD. You can't set off my deferred tax asset with the subsidiary deferred tax liability. If subsidiary having deferred tax asset, I am having deferred tax liability, I can't set off with this. Why? We are two different entities under tax regulation. Inside the company, I can. Tax asset can be set off with the tax liability. මෙතන අපි tax asset එක book කරලා බැද නෑ. අපේ deferred tax asset එක අඩුයි liability එකට වඩා. ඒකයි අපි මේක set off කරලා තියෙන්නේ. In the individual company. Under individual company, our deferred tax asset is lesser than the deferred tax liability. That's why we have set off it. But here, we may have different companies having deferred tax asset and deferred tax liabilities. We can't set off it. That's why I am telling here. Once you are booking your deferred tax asset and deferred tax liabilities, keep that separate account, parent account and the subsidiary account. Parent account and the subsidiary account. So then overall subsidiary deferred tax asset, overall subsidiary deferred tax liability, you can set off it. One subsidiary, right? B subsidiary, Q subsidiary. Parent deferred tax asset and deferred tax liability, you can set off. Right? Otherwise, you can't set off. That is the basic knowledge aspect about deferred tax. Right? Now, deferred tax එක ගණන් දෙක තුනක් දෙන්නම් කොන්සෝල් ගණන් හදලා දෙන්නම්. So then you can try. We'll see whether we can put this deferred tax to exam question or not. That depends. Deferred tax you should know, right? I think deferred tax, most of the typical part I discuss here now with the logic and the basic concept plus consolidation. Right? So then we have discussed console. I think basic goodwill calculation, adjustments, acquisition, uh, disposal, then disposal, deferred tax. So then we have done all the things here. We have covered all the things. Goodwill calculation with these considerations, these different adjustments, set of adjustments we discussed, right? Acquisition, disposal, step acquisition, step disposal, deferred tax. For P&L plus balance sheet or balance sheet only. Right? We have this summary. You should have in your head. What is this? What do you mean by that? Other than that, we know there's something. Subsidiaries. Subsidiaries. In your career, there may be questions. The subsidiaries. What we do is very simple thing, right? Do the consolidation for each consolidation, for each pair. Simple. Do the consolidation for each pair and get the consolidated balance sheet and do the reconsolidation. That's done. No need to calculate your ultimate impact. Ultimate impact and calculate the direct consolidation. No need to do the consolidation for, that's the easiest way. Do the consolidation for immediate period and get the consolidated for it. And again, do the line by line consolidation. It's about subsidiary. So then, area number 2. Area number 2. Done. Area number 2 done. Consolidation. After long journey. I hope you had a good time. Consolidation. We did many questions, exercises, and we uploaded different questions. Still, I am providing, and I will support you all. Now, you decide whether you are getting it or not. I don't know the experience. They are in the class. But I was just a few hours. One so do it. That's the thing. So then, practically, some is very difficult for you. That's okay. Try to do it. Ask your friends and go through some video clips and some things. The way I am explaining may not be the ideal way. So then people some other views. So then what I am going to emphasize here, it relates to your the thought process, and then it helps you understand what's the type of guidelines. Here, you need to understand what's the test, what's the question, what's the scenario. That's the requirement, right? So then do it at rapid. So then that is done. So then we are moving to SLFRS 9. SLFR is 9. So then we have already discussed most of the cases. But most of the cases, some of the areas we have already discussed. This amortized cost classification discussed. And today I'm going to wrap up all those things and discuss further. And I will share some of the questions with you all later. And then you can do maths about SFRS 9. And it's the reason for keeping this as the final learning outcome, because it relates to each and every aspect, right? That's a very the unique area, and it can link to different different perspectives. So then, once you are investing in a subsidiary, as we discussed, if you are disposing 90% to, let's say, 80%, remaining with 10%. 10% may be an investment. SLFR is 9. Likewise, this standard will direct to different perspectives. Keep in mind. Right? Very common standard. Don't take it as a kind of a very complex standard. So then always you are living with this standard. Not like this government grants, earning per share, or agriculture. So then sometimes foreign exchange impact also very rarely you are doing. But financial instruments, always you are dealing with this standard, right? Because daily you are working in financial instruments. Financial instruments. Syllabus 9. Financial instruments. Right. Financial instruments. Under this, you should learn. First, financial asset and financial liability. Second, financial asset and financial liability classification and measurement. Classification, measurement, and let's say disclosure. Third, impairment. Impairment model. Impairment model. Impairment model. Derivatives. Derivatives and embedded derivatives. Derivatives and embedded derivatives. Hedging and hedge accounting. Hedging and hedge account. This is the content. Are you ready to learn this? No. Financial asset, financial liability, financial asset, financial liability classification, measurement, and disclosure. Impairment models, derivatives and embedded derivatives, hedging and hedge out. These are the topics to know. To the exam. Right? Quickly, I am going through all those things. Okay? They can tell in hedging derivatives. අදනම් මොකද උදේ ඉඳලා නේද කාලා නිින්දක් දාගෙන නේද පුත් මෙහෙම කොන්සෝල් අවුල් එක තියෙන්නේ ඩෙරිවටිව්ස් නන්නේ එජින් ආරමාරු වෙන්නේ ඉබ්බනේ ඉතින් සරලයි financial asset financial liabilities. So then financial instrument can be divided into financial asset and liability. Financial asset and financial liability. Financial asset and financial liability. So then financial instrument. Financial instrument is an instrument. It's the creating kind of a financial asset to one party. Parallelly, it will create a financial liability to other party. That's a financial the feature of financial instrument. Right. If it is a financial instrument, to one part it's a financial asset, to other part financial liability. One of the example financial instrument example ඕන තරම් කියන්න පුළුවන් නේද? ඕන තරම් example කියන්න. ඔයාගේ grade දෙකේ පන්තියේ තියන අර මේ කකුල් හතර සත්තු කියන්නේ ඔයා ගොඩාක් කියනවනේ. කකුල් හතර සත්තු කියන්නේ මට ගොඩාක් කියන්න පුළුවන්. නේද? ගොඩක් කියන්න පුළුවන්. ඒ වගේ examples of financial instruments. ඔයාට ඕන තරම් කියන්න පුළුවන් නේද? ඔයා මෙතන කොනේ ඉඳලා ලියුවොත් මේ විත්තියේ කොනේ යන්න ලියන්න. ඕන තරම් ලියන්න. අන්න නේද? ඔයාට පටන් ගන්න පුළුවන් FD වලින්. නේද? FD, savings, current account, treasury bill, treasury bond, commercial papers, stock, debentures, futures, options, forward contracts, hedging, then that's why I'm telling. Once you are dealing with your business, activities, once you are dealing with your organization, you may have this instrument each and every instance. Maybe treasury bill, treasury bond, FD, savings, different scenarios. So then maybe you may be in your asset side or the liability side. You may be the investor or the investee. From bank side and the asset side. Right? two different sides. So then once you are having this list of financial instruments, what you have to do? You need to identify the classification and measurement and disclosure. Classification, measurement and disclosure. So classification, measurement and disclosure. Financial instrument. Mama slide එක දීලා තියෙන්නේ. Can you all see these classifications? Classification measurement model for financial assets. Classification and measurement model for financial assets. Financial liability is very straightforward. Right? As I said, financial asset, financial instruments, financial asset and financial liabilities. Right? Financial liabilities. Financial liabilities, two classification. Amortized cost, fair value through profit or loss. Financial liabilities, amortized cost, fair value through P&L. Two classes, but financial asset, your classification is complex. Financial asset classification is complex, right? Financial asset classification is complex. Not like this. Like this. මට පේනවනේ මේක කම්ප්ලෙක්ස් කියලා. ඊට වඩා එහෙට මෙහෙට ඉහිල්ල තියෙනවා මේ arrows ගොඩක්. මේ arrows ටික ඔයාලට හොඳට තේරෙනවා මෙන්න මේ slide එක. What do you mean by this classification? Right? So then, on the top, we have three criteria, right? Three classes. What are they? So financial asset, debt instrument, derivatives, and equity instrument. So that's the first classification, debt, derivatives and equity. So whatever the list you prepare here, you can classify it to debt, derivatives and equity instruments. Right? One is one party having asset, one party having a liability. Right? So then you have two tests here. These are the two tests. First test, contractual cash flow characteristic test. Anyone see that? Contractual cash flow characteristic test. At instrument level. What do you mean by that? Cash flow characteristic test. That's the first test we need to do. Cash flow characteristic test. A test එකෙන් මම මොනවද කිව්වේ? මෙයා විතරයි පාස් වෙන්නේ. මෙයා fail, මෙයා fail. බලන්න හැමදාම fail. කවුද පාස් වෙලා තියෙන්නේ? මෙයා විතරයි පාස් වෙලා තියෙන්නේ. අනිත් කවුරුත් fail වෙලා තියෙන්නේ. Cash flow characteristic test fail for derivatives and equity. Only pass debt. For debt, we are doing business model test. Business model test. මේ වචනත් වැදගත්. And instrument level and aggregate level. What do you mean by? First test, instrument wise we need to do it. Second test, as a whole, as a bulk, we have to go that test. Right? So under that, according to the business model test, hold to collect contractual cash flows. If we are holding to collect contractual cash flows, if it is so, hold to collect contractual cash flows. Amortized cost. Make dialog box එක චුට්ටකට hold කරගන්න. Contractual conditional fair value option elected. Yes or no? Yes or no? No. Amortized cost. මේක අමතක කරන්න ඕනේ. මේ option එක අමතක කරන්න. So then, business model test, hold to collect contractual cash flows. There's a one instrument we are holding to collect contractual cash flows. We are not planning to sell it out. We are not planning to sell. We are not planning to make it gains. We hold to collect contractual cash flows like FD. If it is so, amortized cost. Maybe to come up with that. Management with the object that results in collecting contractual cash flows and selling financial assets. To some extent, we are keeping that for contractual cash flows. To some extent, we are planning to sell it. Like, let's say we are having treasury bond. Next 5 years, we are planning to get contractual cash flows. After that, we are planning to sell it. If it is so, we can say fair value through OCI. Fair value through OCI. Right? Fair value through OCI. If you are keeping this asset for trading purpose, for getting capital gain, fair value through P&L. Fair value through P&L. Right? Standard clearly says, at the inception, you have a right to select, to elect this option as a management conditional fair value option. You are keeping this asset to hold and collect contractual cash flows. But at the inception point onwards, management decide to do the fair valuation. If it is so, that option can be used. If it is so, we can do the fair valuation. If you are not using this option, you have to go to this. What debt instrument you can determine cash flow characteristics. Treasury bill FD cash flow characteristic so you are keeping that get contractual cash flows at the maturity. Right? At the maturity, you are planning to get the contractual cash flows. If you are having contractual cash flows, you have to use the amortized cost. But you have option to do the fair valuation. At the inception point, you have election. You have to elect that. If you have elected, you can't change it to amortized cost. If you have elected, yes, you are fair value through P&L. If you have not elected, amortized cost. So then, debt instrument can be measured at three mechanisms by using three mechanisms. What are they? It may be amortized cost, fair value through OCI, fair value through P&L. Simple. Debt instrument measured at amortized cost, debt instrument measured at fair value through P&L, debt instrument measured at fair value through OCI. And then derivatives. Derivatives, no option, fair value through P&L. Right? Fair value through P&L. Equity, held for trading, yes, fair value through P&L. Held for trading, yes, fair value through P&L. No. We have a equity cash flow characteristics fail because we can't determine cash flows because it depends on the dividend policy. Dividend is the equation of the profitability. We can't expect contractual cash flows. We can't determine. Because of that, cash flow characteristic test is failed, right? So then we have another question. Held for trading, yes, fair through P&L. Equity instrument or share market එකේ වැඩ කරන්නේ මොකටද? ඔයා sell කරලා profit ගන්න නම්. ඒ shares ටික කොහොමද? fair value through P&L. Or equity shares 10ක් 15ක් තියන් ඉඳලා ඒවා P&L. ඔයා තියන් ඉන්නේ help for trading නෙමෙයි. Strategic purpose acquire කරන්න company එක. If it is so, no. Fair value OCI option elected. Option එක තියෙනවා fair value through OCI යන්න පුළුවන්. එහෙමනම් yes fair value through OCI. මෙහෙමනම් fair value through OCI option එක ගත්තේ නැහැ. නැත්නම් fair value through P&L. එතකොට අපිට කෙලින්ම දෙයක් කියන්න පුළුවන්. මොකක්ද කියන්නේ? Debt instrument we have three classifications. Debt instruments we have three classifications. If it is a derivative or equity, what's the measurement basis? Fair value through P&L. Nothing. Fair value through P&L. If you want to elect fair value through OCI, at the inception, we want to elect. We want to elect. We can't change it. If it is so, we have to do fair value through OCI. Keep in mind, you can use fair value through OCI, but you can't do recycling. No recycling. But here you can do recycling with recycling. But the recycling can bicycle for that. Recycling. Recycling will better. Yes, that I don't think. Here recycling. They are recycling. No option to recycle. Here we have option to recycle. Be careful. Once you are disposing your equity, if you have used this fair value through OCI, whatever the recognized gain or loss to the OCI, at the point of disposal, you have to recycle. You can't recycle to the P&L again at the disposal point. Recycle to the P&L. OCI දාපිට ආයි P&L ගෙනල්ලා තමයි return earnings කියන්නේ. Recycle කරන. Unrealized gain related. Yeah. Right. Once realized, are we possible to get that to the P&L? Can't. For equity. Can for debt. Right. Marvin. Recycle. Take a මේ slide එක ඔයා study කරන්න. තව study කරන්න. ඔය කියපු වචන so that you need to follow these words. Follow up. Recycling. Search that. Then you learn something. Word, right? Recycling. Equity. No recycling. Debt. Yes, possibility. There's a possibility. Both are elect at the inception. Right. I will share a kind of a video today. Right. So one of a good lecture about this financing. I go through that actually. So then focus and identify what's the reason. And තව reason එකක් තියෙනවා. ඉතින් මේක කිව්වොත් ඔළුව අවුල් වෙලා ඔලෙන් හිරිවෙන්න යනවා ඉතින්. කලින් ස්ටෑන්ඩඩ් එකේ ඉම්පෙයාර් කරේ කොහොමද? කලින් ස්ටෑන්ඩඩ් එකේ අපේ ඉක්විටි ඉන්ස්ට්‍රුමන්ට් අරගෙන තියෙනවා. දෙපාරක් නයින් එකක් significant or prolonged value decrease එකක් එනවා නම් it should be a imbalance. Significant or prolonged. Right. ඒ වචන තමයි significant or prolonged. Prolonged can a long period of time. So then we don't have that word now. Because of that, we have this option. I can explain it. ඒක වැඩි කියන්නේ නැහැ. කියන්න later. මම session එකක් ආයෙත් ඉස්සරහට දානවා. දැන් වැඩි වෙනවනේ එතන තාම කිව්වා. So then you have this classification. Basically what? We have derivatives, equity and debt instruments, right? We have two tests. cash flow characteristic test, and business model test. Under that, debt instrument can be measured at 3 ways. Amortized cost, fair value through P&L, fair value through OCI. Derivatives, fair value through P&L. Equity, fair value through P&L. For equity, management can elect fair value through OCI, but can't recycle. So then, amortized cost also, and this debt instrument also they can use fair value through OCI, but can recycle. That's the summary. That's the classification. Right? Each and every item we have examples in the standard, right? You can go through. Impairment model. Where says if you have financial asset, so then credit impairment should be done. Credit impairment should be done. Credit impairment assessment should be done. Impairment assessment should be done based on the expected loss model. Expected loss model, not incurred loss model. We have to do expected loss model, not incurred loss model. Expected loss model. Expected loss model. Expected loss model. Incurred loss model. Based on the expectation of the credit risk, we need to evaluate that of the each and every individual customers and do the impairment provision. Expected loss model. Right. For that, normally in Sri Lanka, so then normally in Sri Lanka we are using BBS model. BPS. BPD, no? BPD. Days past due models. Days past due models. And in other countries, with the technological aspects, for financial instruments, financial institutions, we are having ratings, customer ratings. Based on that customer ratings, credit risk can be evaluated. Based on that credit risk, in the expectation, we need to do the impairment provision, not the incurred model. It should be futuristic. Previously, what happened? Kali pattern එකක් බලලා provision එකක් cal කරලා provision එක දැම්මේ නේද? කලින් දුන්නේ නැත්නම් ඒකේ provision එකක් cal කරලා තමයි impairment provision දැම්මේ. දැන් කියපනේ we need to predict the future. Predict the future, right? දැන් අපි presentation කරන plan එකේ ඉන්නේ නේ. Presentation කරන screen එකේ එහෙම තමයි ඉන්නේ. Focus එක සම්පූර්ණයෙන් දෙකේ පන්තියේ තියෙන එකයි අවශ්‍ය. Adults ගන්න. දැන් මේ derivatives මේ මොනවා හරි වචනයක් දාගෙන. Focus එක දෙකේ පන්තියේ දාමු. කොහෙද යන්නේ කියන්නේ මාරු ප්ලේ. හිතාගන්න බෑ කොහෙද යන්නේ බද්ද වෙන්නේ. ඒ ඇන්ගල් එකේ ඉන්නවා. ප්‍රසන්ටේෂන් කරන්න අද බැලුවොත් ප්‍රසන්ටේෂන් කරන්න. අද බැලුවොත් අද ප්‍රොග්‍රෑම්. අද ප්‍රසන්ටේෂන් නිසා යන්න අද ප්‍රසන්ටේෂන් derivatives. ඊවිලේ දාලා ඉගෙන ගන්න හම්බෙන්නේ නැහැ derivatives. presentation නම් ඕන දැනගෙන කරන්න පුළුවන්. presentation ඕන දැනගෙන කරන්න පුළුවන්. presentation තමයි නාගන්නේ. presentation තමයි වැලිම. that format practical out හැමදෙන්නේ. ඉන්නේ අවශ්‍ය practical එකේ. presentation ඕන දැනගෙන presentation එකේ. presentation එකේදී presentation එකේ නෙකේ. lecture එකේදී presentation එකේ. අවුලෙන් දැන් මේ අපි කතා කරන්නේ. So then it's very complex area. Complex area if you are doing kind of a financial institution analysis or audit or something like that. This impairment model is very important. Expected model. So that we have stages. Stage 1, stage 1, stage 2, stage 3 for the credit evaluation, right? Stage 1, we do the credit evaluation for 12 months. 12-month credit loss. Api stage 2 and 3, api credit evaluation එක කරන්නේ lifetime. For the lifetime credit loss evaluation. But they can. Stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. So then it was not in the standard actually. So then DPD model also, they pass due model also not in the standard. So then that's a kind of a model in Sri Lanka. Basically we are using base pass due. Past due dates based karala, we are categorizing overall asset portfolio. Maybe lease asset, maybe creditors, debtors, or loan portfolio, lease portfolio. Whatever the asset portfolio, අපිට එක asset එකක් නම් අපිට නිකම්ම impairment කරන්න පුළුවන්. නේද? අපිට ඉතින් bank එකක් තියෙනවා. වාට bank එකේ කොච්චර loan ගත්තොත් කොච්චර portfolio එකක් තියෙනවා. Portfolio එකක් තියෙනවා. Asset portfolio. So then individually how can you assess the credit risk? So then you can't do that, right? Individually you can't do that. First, as a first step, what you're going to do, you can have kind of a threshold. And then you can identify significant customers. And then you can evaluate the individual impairment. ISL. Individual impairment. ISL. Threshold, significant customers, individual impairment. And after doing individual impairment, after evaluating individual customers, some of the customers, it's not significant. As a bulk, we are putting as a collective impairment because we can't evaluate one by one. So then that is called collective impairment. So then in a bank, normally impairment composite with individual impairment and the collective impairment. ඒක මතක තියාගන්න. bank එකේ impairment හැදෙන්නේ individual impairment and collective impairment. ඔයා bank audit කරන්නේ හොයන්න ඕන. මේ areas හොඳටම important. Collective impairment and individual impairment. Individual impairment එක කරන්නේ significant customers select කරලා. significant customers ලා අරගෙන බලන්න objective evidence තියෙනවා. cash flow forecast individually කරලා බලන්න. impair වෙනවද? impair නැත්නම් ඔයාලට collective bucket එක. collective විදිහට impair කරනවා. That's the mechanism, right? So then collective individual impairment and collective impairment. Collective impairment කරන විදිහ තමයි මේ කියවෙන්නේ. Stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. Stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. So then these are the age buckets, due buckets, credit rating, right? Days past due, due වෙන period එක තමයි buckets වලට හදලා තියෙන්නේ. දවස් 30ක් due වෙලා, දවස් 60ක් due වෙලා. 0, 30, 30, 60, 60 to 90. අපි 0, 30, 30 to 60, we consider as stage 1. Stage 1. This we consider as maybe stage 2. This consider as stage 3. මේ ටිකට කියනවා කොහොමද? Performing, performing, underperforming, non-performing. Performing, underperforming, non-performing. Performing. Underperforming, non-performing. Performing customers, we do only for 12 months credit loss evaluation. So then what's the probability of getting default within these 12 months? Because we don't have a high risk file. They are performing well. For others, for lifetime we are evaluating the credit loss. එයාගේ අවුරුද්ද ගිහිල්ලා නෙමෙයි අවුරුදු 3 4 5ක් විතර යනවා. එයාගේ facility එක අවුරුදු 5යි. අවුරුදු 5ක facility එකේ අවුරුදු 5න් credit loss එකක් බලන්න. 5ේදීම default වෙන්න පුළුවන් because they are underperforming. They are not performing. They evaluate for lifetime credit loss, not the 12 months credit loss. Right? Lifetime credit loss versus the 12 months credit loss valuation. මේ මොනවද මේ කතා කරන්නේ? impairment model එක. මේක ස්ටෑන්ඩඩ් එකේ තියෙනවද? ස්ටෑන්ඩඩ් එකේ නැහැ. ඉන්ඩස්ට්‍රි ප්‍රැක්ටිස් එකේ මෙන්න දේවල් කතා කරනවා. right? මෙතන අපි ඒ ගයිඩ්ලයින් එක ස්ටෑන්ඩඩ් එකේ තියෙනවා. ඒක දාලා තියෙන්නේ මම ස්ටයිල් එකේ මොකක්ද? 12 month expected credit loss. Lifetime expected credit loss for underperforming and non-performing. Slide එකේ තියෙනවා ලියාගත්ත එකක් බලන්න පුළුවන්. මේකත් මාර ඉම්පෝටන්ට් මෙන්න මේ තියෙන කතාව. බැංක් එකක් ඉන්ට්‍රස්ට් රෙකග්නයිස් කරගන්නකොට ඉන්ට්‍රස්ට් රෙවෙනියු බේස්. ඔයාගේ gross carrying amount. ඔයාගේ gross amount එකට ඉන්ට්‍රස්ට් රෙකග්නයිස් කරගන්න. මෙතෙන්දී gross amount එකට ඉන්ට්‍රස්ට් රෙකග්නයිස් කරගන්න. මෙතෙන්දී net carrying amount එකට ඉන්ට්‍රස්ට් රෙකග්නයිස් කරගන්න. receivable එකේ impairment එක අඩුපිට ඉතුරු එකට තමයි percentage එක ගන්න. Interest recognize කරගන්නේ for non performing loans. In my ඉන්කම් එක කියන්නේ ඔයාගේ loan එක non performing නම් ඔයාගේ loan එක non performing නම් ඒ කියන්නේ ගෙවලා නැහැ නම් බැංක් එක දාලා තියෙන loan amount එකෙන් දාපු impairment එක අඩු කරලා net එකට තමයි interest බැංක් එක income recognize කරන්නේ. I getting me? That's the mean. Okay, that's about impairment. That's about impairment model. Sri Lanka, we have this, right? So after calculating all those things, I have already discussed this. Finally, you are getting a kind of a final loss ratio. What is that? PD into LGD into economic factor equal loss ratio. PD into LGD into economic factor. Probability of default into loss given default into economic factor. This is the formula you are getting. Probability of default you are getting from this stage calculation. Probability of default. Default probability you calculate by using this. Loss given default is a separate calculation. Loss given default and the economic factor. Economic futuristic economic aspect should be embedded to the loss ratio. That is called expected loss method. Expected loss method දෙකේ P එකක් තමයි economic factor. Loss given default LGD. PD, LGD and economic factor. PD, LGD loss ratio කියන්නේ මොකද්ද? දැන් බය වෙලා වගේ බලන්න ඉන්න එපා. Loss ratio කියන්නේ final loss එකේ ratio එක. PD probability of default. Customer කෙනෙක් සල්ලි නොදෙන්න තියෙන probability එක. That's the probability of not giving cash on time. Probability of default, right? ඒක calculate කරන්න පුළුවන් probability. Loss given default after getting default, what is the loss? 100% loss එකක්ද? ඔයා සල්ලි නොදුන්නොත් ඔයාලට ගහලවත් සල්ලි ඉඳ ගන්න බැරිද? කියන්නේ නේද? ඔයා 100ක් සල්ලි දුන්නේ නැත්නම් ඔයා 100ක් සල්ලි දුන්නේ නැත්නම් ඔයා default වෙනවා. ඔයාට 100ම හම්බ වෙන්නේ නැහැ. නෑ ඔයාට දැන් හිතන්නකෝ ලීස් එකක් අරගෙන නම් ලීස් එක අපේ වාහනේ සීස් කරලා රිකවර් කරගන්න පුළුවන් නේද? ඒකට loss එක 100 නම් ඔයාට 100ම නෙමෙයි loss එක වෙන්නේ. එහෙමනම් maybe 30%. It loss. So bank එක lease වල LGD එක maybe 20%. hey පොලෙන්ඩල් එකක් තියෙනවා. හැම වෙලාවෙම නේද loan එකකට ඇයි යාර ට්‍රෙක්ස් වල ගන්නෙ හැම වෙලේම. ඒකෙන් රිකවර් කරගන්න. So then your PD probability of default not equal to LGD. LGD maybe 30%. Economic factor maybe 110. This is the loss ratio. Economic factor calculation එක කියන විදිහ හරියට එපා ඒක. ඒක ලොකු calculation. ලොකු qualitative factors දාලා standard deviation දාලා ලොකු calculation. ඒක බලන්න පුළුවන් මොනවද? study කරලා සුදා දෙනවා කියනවා. ඔයාලට study කරගන්න ඕනේ මේ presentation එකට බය වෙලා lecture cut කරලා කොහොමද sign එකක් දාගෙන පාඩිය දින පිටපත් බලන් ඉඳලා ඒ stage එකේ පහු වෙලා මම මේ level එකට වැටෙන්නේ නැහැ lecture කරලා. මම මේ level එකට touch කරන්නේ. මොකද මේ mentality එකේ නැහැ. ඒ mentality එක address කරලා හිතෙන්නේ. නැත්නම් මට පුළුවන් count කරලා කොනේ ඉඳලා count කරලානේ mark කරගෙන මේ mentality එකට වැටෙන්නේ. මම හිතනවා ඔයාලා මේ mentality එකට වැටෙන්නේ නැහැ. මම expect කරන situation එක. ඒ mentality එක deal කරලා අපි preschool වලදී තියෙන දේ වෙන්නේ. එහෙනම් ඇයි මේ අපිට වෙන්නේ? යුනිවර්සිටි එකට ඇවිල්ලා මම weekend එකේ lecture කරන්නත් මේ PA level එකට වැටෙනවා. ඒක not. So then here we have very complex thing to solve. Very complex. Not that easy. Okay. Right. I think this is not an easy calculation, right? Today I will share kind of a good lecture, right? CA Srilanka lecture. So then you can get a more detail about this aspect. Listen carefully. Rajita will do the lecture. So then I will share that link with you all. මම දැන් කියපුවා හොඳ ඩීටේල්ස් කරයි කියලා. එයා මමත් එයාගේ ලර්න් කරලා ගොඩක් තියෙනවා. හොඳ ඉන්ඩස්ට්‍රි එකේ ඉන්න ෆයිනෑන්ෂල් ඉන්ස්ට්‍රුමන්ට්ස් සුපර් එක්ස්පර්ට් කෙනෙක්. ටියුට් එකේ ගොඩක් ෆැසිලිටේටර් කෙනෙක්. yeah. So then I can listen to what our expertise channel. What are the things, right? So then add all those things and be strong, right? So then moving to derivatives and embedded derivatives. දැන් වෙලාවක් නැහැ කියලා එහෙමත් නැහැ. අපිට අගාලා වැඩි දෙයක් නැහැ. derivatives කියන්නේ මොකක්ද කියලා ඉගෙන ගත්තා. නේද? embedded derivatives කියන්නේ මොකක්ද කියලා ඉගෙන ගත්තා. hedging, hedge accounting. derivatives. මේ derivative. නිකන් හිතලා බලන්න. අමාරු වචනයක්, දන්නේ නැති වචනයක්. පෙන්නන්නේ කියන්න විදියක් නැහැ. පේන්න නැහැ. නේද? සතුවක් ගන්නන්නේ සතු වෙනන්නේ කියනකොට. ඒක පෙන්නන්නේ කියන්නේ derivatives නේද? සතුවක් පෙන්නන්නේ කියනකොට. සතු බලලා ඉන්න තියෙනවා. derivatives නැහැ. පෙන්නන්නේ. derivatives is the financial instrument. Stocks කියන idea එක පොඩ්ඩක් stocks කිව්වම ඒ වගේ idea එකක් ගන්නවා. You can't understand. Now we have to understand if stock exchange is there, stock market. So then the capital composition of the company is split to a small portion that let's call stock. We may have private stock and the public stock that will be traded in the stock market. So there may be IPO or secondary market. We can gain capital gain or interest, dividend income. Likewise, we may have a story about stock. We have this experience, right? Derivatives, you may have a lot of experience. That's why it's a kind of a new words for you, right? Derivatives, features are, it's a contract. It's a contract. It's a contract. Today we have very minimal cost. Zero or very minimal cost. It's a contract. Contract having very minimal cost. So then here we have derivative. It's a contract having minimal cost. Will execute in future. Execute in future. Execute in future. Value will be determined. Underlying asset. minimal cost, executed in future, underlying, there may be underlying asset. We have some of the other contracts. So then these three features should be their derivative. Some of the in our contracts, we have an employment contract. We are giving the service, we are getting the salary. It's a contract, right? It's a contract. There's a cost, there's a future execution, and then there's no such underlying value. Underlying as the value will be depends on some kind of underlying factor, uncontrolled factor. So then such kind of arrangement we call as a derivative. What do you mean by that? Example. Example. It may be a contract. It may be a contract. What are the examples for this? Example, option. Option. Forward contracts. The hedging. Hedging. ඕන එකක් මේකට ගන්න පුළුවන් example එකක් විදිහට derivatives. Option එක කියන්නේ. Option. You have an option. You have option means it's a contract. It's a contract. Minimal value. Minimal value. In future, that contract option will be executed, and based on the some other underlying value. So option එක maybe share price එක depend වෙන්න පුළුවන්. Share price එක වැඩි වෙනකොට option එක execute කරනවා. ඒ වගේ arrangement එකක් contract එකේ තියෙන derivative එකක්. Forward contract එකක්. Forward contract එකක්. මොකද forward contract එකක් කියන්නේ? අද අපේ මොනවා හරි ප්‍රශ්නයක් තියෙනවා. commodity price එක කිව්වම underlying asset එක commodity price එකක් හරි මොනවා හරි දෙයක්. අපිට doubt එකක් තියෙනවා. අද මේ price එක වෙනස් වෙයි කියලා. මේ price එක වෙනස් වෙයි කියලා අපි future price එකට agreement එකකට. එතෙන් අපිට futures කියලා තියෙනවා. futures කියලා જાතියක් තියෙනවා. futures ලංකාවේ නැහැ. ඒවා kind of a structured forward contract models, right? අපි හිතමු forward contract එක. forward contract එක. ඉස්සරහට දාලා තියෙන contract එක. ඔයාලට කියන්නේ අද ඔයාලට doubt එකක් තියෙනවා. ඔයාලට මේ price එකට හම්බ වෙයිද කියලා. ඔයාලා මොකද කරන්නේ? හම්බ වෙයි කියලා හිතන හම්බ වෙන එකක් නැහැ කියලා හිතන නිසා අද ටක් ගාලා අපි contract එකට. අද ටක් ගාලා contract එකට. එතකොට ඔයාලට තේරෙනවනේ ඔයාලට forward contract එකක්. මේ price එකට after another 3 months we are planning to buy it. It's a forward contract. දැන් අද මේ agreement එකට එන්න අද contract එකක් තියෙනවා දැන්. agreement එකක් තියෙනවා minimal cost. පොඩි cost එකයි යන්නේ මේක කරන්න. and execute in future. execute කරන්න future එකේ. value depend on underlying asset. අර price index එක මත තමයි ඒකේ value එක decide වෙන්නේ. It's a forward contract. hedging. ඒක කියන derivative එකක් කියලා. දැන් derivative example ඒවා. Some of our explanation එවන්න. දැනට understanding ගන්න ඕනේ. Right? What do you mean by derivative and examples? Embedded derivative කියන්නේ. Embedded derivative. Embedded derivative. There's a normal contract. There's a normal contract. That contract will be embedded a small derivative portion. That is called embedded derivative. It's a normal contract. Normal contract can be embedded a derivative option. There may be derivative inside the normal contract. That is called embedded derivative. Embedded derivative. Embedded derivatives, right? At which point you are going to separate that embedded derivative? At which point you are going to separate that embedded derivative? Then assume contract එකක් තියෙනවා. ඒ contract එකේ ඇතුලේ derivative පොඩි කෑල්ලක් තියෙනවා. මොකක්ද derivative පොඩි කෑල්ල? දැන් ඔයා marry කරන්නේ contract එකක්. ඒ contract එකේ අගක කොනක තියෙනවා නේද? පොඩි derivative එකක්. මොකද කොනක තියෙන derivative එක? නේද? price index එක මෙච්චර වුණොත් මම ඔයාල් කම්පැනි එකේ share investment එකක් කරනවා. ඒකට ඔයා wedding එකේ contract එක count කරන ගමන් අර derivative portion එක account කරනවද? separately account කරනවද? එකම ඇතුලේ count කරනවද කියලා ප්‍රශ්නයක්. නේද? ඒ කියන්නේ wedding contract එකේ benefit එක එකට count කරනවද dowry එක? Embedded derivative එක වෙනම ගන්නවද? Embedded derivative එක වෙනම count කරනවා. කියලා ප්‍රශ්න තමයි. මොකද්ද ප්‍රශ්නේ? Are we going to separate the embedded derivative when doing a separate accounting treatment? We need to decide that. We need to decide that. Whether you are going to treat to the embedded derivative separately or not. For that, we need to do kind of evaluation. What we have to do? You have to evaluate the main contract and the embedded derivative. The risk of both contracts, whether it's going in line, evaluate that. Evaluate that. If it is go in line, no need to separate. No need to separate. No need to separate, right? Another thing is, can you separately identify that derivative? Can you separately identify that derivative from the overall arrangement? If possible, yes, you can. You can identify separately. Other thing is, the normal contract treated in a separate accounting treatment. If it is so, you have to identify the embedded derivative separately. Let's say you are in a lease contract. You are in a lease contract. In that lease contract, we have a small derivative option. So the derivative account correct. The requires 9 money. Lease account 16 money. 16 money treatment එක මේකට හරියන්නේ එකක් නෑ. So then two separate accounting treatment. If it is low, we need to separate the embedded derivative from the main contract. Right? I'm repeating myself again. The risk of the embedded derivative, if it is totally different with the main contract, it should be separately identified. If we can identify embedded derivative separately, then we need to identify. And accounting treatment, per se. We have two different accounting treatment. If it is so, we need to identify the embedded derivative separately. Right? Embedded derivative separately. So then you know derivative and the embedded derivative. Now I am going to hedging. Right? Hedging. Hedging and hedge accounting. Hedging. What do you mean by hedging? Mitigating the risk maybe. Hedging is if there's a risk, we put some tactic and mitigate the risk. We put some tactic and mitigate the risk. That is called hedging. If there's a foreign currency or interest rate or whatever the risk scenario, we are playing by using this risk and we are putting we are betting with the risk. We are playing with the risk. We are playing with the risk and with the risk we will get a loss. And in other side, we strategically getting a gain. To that strategical gain, we need to plan. That is called hedging. To address the risk, we can use a derivative. That is called hedging. For hedging, we are using derivatives. To mitigate the risk, mitigate some of the risk, we are using derivatives. We can call that as a hedging. Right? We do hedging most of the cases. Companies doing hedging, cash flow hedge, fair value hedge, interest rate you can hedge, foreign currency hedging. The foreign currency hedging can. Or interest rate hedge කරන්න පුළුවන් නේද? hedging කරන්න පුළුවන්. වාට risk එකක් එන්න තියෙනවා. වැඩිපුර foreign exchange යනවා කියලා හිතෙනවා. මොකද කරන්නේ? අද loan එකක් කරා foreign exchange වල invest කරලා තියෙනවා. hedging. මොකද කරන්නේ? ඉතරහ වෙන්න තියෙන එක මම මේ පැත්තේ strategically hedge කරනවා. අතරින් එන loss එක මෙතනින් stop කරගන්න. I'm getting me. ඒ කියන්නේ hedging තියෙනවා. ඔය බලන්න ස්ටඩි කරලා දැන්. what is sense එක කියලා තියෙනවා. hedging means that. Hedging means kind of a risk mitigation option. In businesses, they do many hedging. But hedge accounting, it's an option. It's option. It's option. It's option. You can decide whether you are going to do hedge accounting or not. If you are not doing, straight away you can recognize the loss or gain to the P&L. That's okay. Hedge accounting is the accounting policy decision of your organization. Whether you are going to do hedge accounting or not. You can do hedge, but it's up to you to decide whether you are going to do hedge accounting or not. It's your choice as the management. That's not a must. It is not a must, right? Once you are doing hedge accounting, once you are doing your hedge accounting, first hedge effectiveness should be there in your arrangement. That's the critical thing. Hedge effectiveness should be there in your arrangement. If you want to do hedge accounting, your arrangement should be there, the hedge effectiveness criteria. Your hedge effectiveness criteria should be satisfied to do hedge accounting. Keep in mind. ඒක තමයි මම exam එකේ test කරා. ඔයාට hedge accounting කරන්න ඔයාගේ hedge effectiveness එක pass වෙලා තියෙන්න ඕනේ hedging arrangement. order or you know, matter of risk, you know, mom may die the game or gather the risk time, make a gather once, take a risk, a die, make a risk, a part. Factoring and the loss second, ready. Hedge effectiveness should be satisfied. Right? So then, evaluation of hedge effectiveness, 3 criteria. Evaluation of hedge effectiveness, 3 criteria. Right. Hedge effectiveness measurement criteria. Right? You know that once we are going to go to kind of a hedge arrangement, we have 2 elements. What are they? Hedge item and the hedge instrument. Hedge item and the hedge instrument. Hedge item and hedge instrument. For the hedge item and hedge instrument. Hedge instrument again derivative rate. Hedge item again what then risk. Hedge item again water තව මාස 6කින් කඩ කරන්න තියෙනවා. වාට මාස 6කින් සැලරිගේ පේමන්ට් එකක් කරන්න තියෙනවා. දිග්වේ පේමන්ට් එකක් කරන්න දැන් රිස්ක් එකක් තියෙනවා. ඔකට අපි කරන්නේ. ඔයාලා එකට හෙජ් කරනවා. හෙජ් කරන්න මේ පොලිස් අංශයෙන් මේවා පොත්තු මේ හදන්න යනවා. දැන් පොත්තු හදන්න යනවා. නේද? පොත්තු හදන්න යනවා රැට. පොත්තු ස්ටේෂන් එකේ පොත්තු හදන්න යනවා. එහෙම ඉන්නවද? ඔව්. එහෙම ඉන්නවා හොඳ පිළි පොත්තු බාස්. ටාල්ට් account. ලංකා. එමින් ඒක දැන් පින්නේ මාර සුරංගනාලෝ කියන්නේ. රැට පොත්තු හදනවා. දවල්ට ට්‍රේනින් යනවා. එමන් චාර්ටර්ඩ් account වෙච්ච සුපිරි. ආයෙත් බෑ. මකට ඒක. ලංකාවේ හොඳම පොත්තු බාස්ලා. චාර්ටර්ඩ් account. දෙපැත්තම පර්ෆෙක්ට්. පොත්තු ගහලා තමයි චාර්ට් එකම. හැරෙන්න බෑ. වැටෙන්න තැනකුත් නැහැ. හැරෙන්න තැනකුත් නැහැ. වෙන්න පුළුවන්. ඒතකොට මොකද ඒක කරලා තියෙන්නේ? හෙජ් කරලා තියෙන්නේ. වාට එන රිස්ක් එක අද හෙජ් කරනවා. හැබැයි වාට එන්නේ නැහැ. ඒකයි කියන්නේ හෙජ් රේෂියෝ එක මැච් වෙනවා. Hedge instrument should be tallied with the hedge item. ඔයාට මේ පොත් වලින් එන ඉන්කම් එක අර පේමන්ට් එක ගෙවන්න මතිද මේක කළා වැඩක් නැහැ. ඒක පේමන්ට් එක තියෙනවා 1 million. ඔයාට එන්නේ මෙතනින් ලක්ෂ 6ක් විතර. ඒක නැහැ. Hedge ratio should be tallied. The risk and the benefit you are getting from the hedge instrument and the hedge item should be having a good ratio. That's one criteria for the hedge effectiveness. Hedge instrument should reflect the hedge item. Another thing is, once you are doing your hedging arrangement, the risk aspect should be go in line with the same, same economic risk. Let's say we are dealing with this exchange rate, right? We have to use that aspect. By using the exchange rate, we are doing something here, and we are getting a gain and set of with that. Let's say if that is something else, according to the economic factor, economic getting changed. this hedge instrument change into other way around, your risk change into other way around. If something happen, this hedge instrument and hedge item should be react in the same way. The economic impact of the hedge instrument and the hedge item should be react to one item in the same way. What do you mean by that? What hedge කරන්නේ? Hedge කරන්නේ. What hedge කරන්නේ? දැන් මම මේකයි කිව්වේ. Hedge එහෙම කරනවා කියන්නේ. Hedge effectiveness පොදු arrangement එකේ මොකද කියනවා? Fail. Hedge effectiveness එක පොදු arrangement මාස 6කින් සැප් එකට ගෙවන්න තිබුණ එක කොත්තු වලින් hedge කරපු එක hedge effectiveness fail කියනවා. Hedge effectiveness criteria. මොකද්ද? හරියටම 1 million match වෙන්න set කරලා තියෙන hedge ratio එක tally. Economic criteria turn වෙනදී. Economic criteria in line there. ඒ mitigate කරපු risk එක government විදියටද අපේ කොත්තු මේක කියන්නේ. ඒක evaluate කරනවා. Then judgment. You are having a derivative relating to hedge, type of a foreign exchange rate. What now masa hiking? What a payment is after foreign university. Foreign university payment is after. So then what you are going to do? Today you are going to hedge that in Srilanka. You are getting kind of a foreign currency and you are putting that in the FCPO account. You are dealing with same foreign currency, right? The economy changing, the same direction will impact to the hedge instrument and the hedge item. ඔයාගේ economy එක මොකද වෙන්නේ? economy එක වැටෙනවා. ඒකේ hedge instrument එකකට එක විදියට බලපාන hedge item එකකට එක විදියට. ඒක මොකක්ද ඒක කරන්නේ? මොකක් හරි incident එකක් නිසා hedge instrument එකට වෙන impact එකට වඩා අනිත් පැත්තට උසම. අර ratio එක නැති වෙනවා කියලා තේරෙනවා. එතකොට hedge effectiveness එක obviously getting fail. නේද? ඔයා target කරන එක දේ. That's all about hedge effectiveness. Again, I am repeating. If you are having a hedge arrangement, you have hedge instrument and the hedge item. Hedge instrument is a derivative, hedge item is an incident. The expected risk, right? This expected risk, whatever the task you are going to take as a hedge instrument, that impact and the expected loss should be tallied. That is called hedge ratio. To tally that, to maintain that, both items should be interlinked with the financial, the economic risk aspect. The hedge item and the hedge instrument should react to the economic aspects parallelly. If there are contradiction with the economic aspect, we can say that hedge effectiveness fail. Right? මොනවාරි incident එකක් වුණොත් එකම පැත්තට තමයි වෙන්නේ. For the hedge instrument and the hedge item. Otherwise, you can't do hedge account. Right? The final one, after having your hedging contract, you can't take decision based on the credit risk. There is no credit risk element in the hedge account. Neglect the credit risk portion. You can salary number waiting up. Credit risk is very once you are evaluating credit, the net effectiveness, credit risk is not a portion in the your evaluation. Those are the three criteria. First one, hedge ratio should be maintained in between hedge instrument and the hedge item. Hedge instrument and hedge item should react to economic factors and other factors in same way, parallel. Right? Dono hari unot, dekha depact react karla hai. So මොකද වෙන්නේ? hedge instrument එක අඩු වෙනවා, hedge item එකේ risk එක වැඩි වෙනවා. There is not hedge. No, there's no point of having hedging. Other thing is, once you are evaluating, once you are taking decision, don't get credit risk for hedge effectiveness. That's three criteria. So after having these three criteria, so after satisfying with these three criteria, you can say that hedge arrangement is effective and you can do hedge accounting. You can do hedge accounting. Yes, you are satisfied with the hedge accounting. Hedge arrangement is effective. So then you have two options. What are they? Fair value hedge and the cash flow hedge. 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 Cash flow hedge, fair value hedge. Fair value hedge, we are counting through P&L. So whatever the fair value gain or losses, we are counting through P&L, right? P&L, except for equity item elected for fair value through OCI. If we are relating to a hedging instrument or item relating to equity item elected to fair value through OCI, if it is so, fair value through OCI. Otherwise, fair value gain or losses should be accounted to the P&L. Fair value through P&L. Cash flow hedge. Cash flow hedge. Cash flow hedge. We have to account in the OCI. You have to account in the OCI. You have to account in the OCI. P&L and OCI. OCI by what instrument එකට වඩා derivative එකෙන් gain එකක් කියනවා. That excess part can be transferred to P&L. OCI but hedge item and the hedge instrument, whatever the gain item and the instrument can be transferred to P&L. මේව තේරෙන්නේ නැහැ. දැන් තියන්න. තේරෙන්නේ නැහැ. Accepted තේරෙන්නේ නැහැ. But hedging මොකක්ද කියන්නේ? මෙහෙම concept එකක් තියෙනවා. SLFRS 9 ඇතුලේ මෙන්න මේව තියෙනවා කියන්නේ. What other thing you have make a surprise here. Financial asset, financial liabilities, measurement basis, disclosures, impairment model is there, derivatives and embedded derivatives are there. Embedded derivatives, sometimes we need to separate it, sometimes we can account in the same way. We have hedging. People are doing hedging. Hedge accounting is option. Hedge accounting should be done if we are having hedge effectiveness. If we are having hedge effectiveness, we may have cash flow hedge and fair value hedge. Right? Fair value hedge directly whatever the fair values of hedge item and the hedge instrument transfer to P&L. Cash flow hedge, OCI, the gap should be transferred to PN. So then I will share some of the guidelines, examples, and practical discussions if you want to go through that, right? So then you can go through all those things and you can familiar with the SLFRS line. So then that's about basic understanding about that. I think you can start now about SLFRS line. Today I can't say that I completed SLFRS line. I just gave the summary, the content of SLFRS line. Till the exam, I am giving some readings and supportings to you, right? And then I am planning to do another virtual one session with you about the exam paper plus whatever the remaining small things. Almost syllabus is covered. Syllabus is almost covered, I think. So then we had a long, can't say that it's a journey, long, thing series. So the area 1 to area 3, consolidation to research to every day we fully utilized and we discussed the shared many things and assignments and many assignments, discussions, presentations, and we had a long journey of knowledge about financial analysis and the standards plus the consolidation. Once you're having a standard, you should know about head and tail of agriculture, government grants, fair value, segmental information, right? And then we had long discussion with practical examples, with the questions, right? Then do practice. So then we'll have a rotation session with each and every item and what are the core concepts behind that. Under biological assets, what are the critical things? Under segment, what's the critical? Under government grants, government grant and the government assistance. Under segmental information, operating segment and the reportable segment. Fair value measurement, principal market and the most advantageous market. Relax. Console chart financial instrument what them financial asset liabilities measurement basis derivatives, embedded derivatives, hedging, hedge accounting, financial impairment model. This is the content of SLFRS 9. And then related disclosures, classification, disclosures, hedging instrument, hedge item, all those things should be properly disclosed. Impairment model related disclosures. That's the overall perspective of the syllabus and the fact. I think you had a physical lectures completed by area 1, 2, and 3. I hope you had a good time and you learned a lot. I wanted to make an impact. I wanted to do that. I hope you had that, you are doing that, you are working towards that. I want to see that reflection through the paper. Right? You want to satisfy me. You want to react that in the paper. Otherwise, I want to see that passion and the knowledge from you all. Paper ko topic level right? So then if you can do that kind of outcome, so then I want that. I want to see that. I want to see that stage. So then in that expectation, so then we move to presentation. So then I hope that your momentum, your passion, will remain, the confirm your strength of the accounting profession, right? So there is the core subject, focus and try to improve yourself day by day. So without this knowledge, you can't survive. Then that should be there. So then add this taxes for this and add financial management to this. And then mix some IT with this, mix some law and regulation with this, and you can be a different person. You can be a valuable person to the society. Definitely you can do that. Then I want to see that. Make it put they were learn. So then finally, at the point of you are getting your degree, you can satisfy. Always I am telling you have to get a real degree, not the sake of getting a degree. No need. But our good degree kind of Indian country MBA PhD. So then how you can react, how you can reflect, how you can give a real degree holder, how you can give a service to the outsiders as a degree holder. That's the matter. What degree එක ගත්ත ගමන්ම corporate report එකක් කරන්න පුළුවන්. join කරන සැපේකට. පුළුවන් වෙනවා. First year value වෙන්න පුළුවන්. After 2-3 years, you will do corporate report. Study කරන්න පුළුවන්. ඒක target එක කියලා. Very hard. Hard කරන්න. So my expectation is that not the getting a pass mark to this corporate recruiting subject, right? I need to explain further, so that I have already discussed all those things with you all. So that I'm always telling that once you are doing anything, so that satisfy yourself, please. Don't do things for sake of doing things or to others' satisfaction, to very third class competition. Don't need to do anything, right? Satisfy yourself. What do you want? Do it. Satisfy it. End of the day, you need to be happy. Whatever the effort you are giving. And more pressurized from the degree, from the religion, from the family, from the friends. Yalo associate for the happiness. And like a word like compete කරන්න. යාළුවා ලස්සන නම් මම සතුටු වෙනවා. යාළුවා කැත නම් මම දුක් වෙනවා යාළුවාට. යාළුවෝ එෆර්ට් එක ඔයා එන්ජොයි කරනවා. රිලේෂන්ස් එකත් එහෙමයි. ඩිග්‍රී එකත් එහෙමයි. ගෙදරත් එහෙමයි. ජොබ් එකත් එහෙමයි. So whatever the job you are doing, enjoy that job. Otherwise it's a headache. මම අනිත් වෙනකන් ඉන්නේ ජොබ් එකට යන්න බලන්න. ඊයේ මානවම ජොබ් එක නැහැතුයි. අද ලෙක්චර් දවසම කරන්න. නැත්නම් දැන් සඳ වෙනකන් බලාගෙන ඉන්න ජොබ් එකට යන්න. ලෙක්චර් දවසම ජොබ් එක. So then you have to have a kind of a passion and interest to your job. Otherwise, you are not in your field. Please change your field. Only thing is again, you are supposed to end that job. But how supposed to end that one at the back? Order. Work-life balance के लिए करते हैं. Work-life balance के लिए करते हैं. So the life is work is part of the life. Work is 90% of your life. If you want to balance the life, you have to balance the work. Work is part of your life. There is no such a work-life balance. It's part of the life. If you want to enjoy, you have to enjoy your job. Otherwise, you can't set any separate time to enjoy. Within the job, you have to enjoy. ඒක අනිවාර්යෙන් කරන්න. ඔයාගේ ජොබ් එකේ තියෙන දේවල් ගෙදර ගෙනල්ලා තියාගන්න හදන්න එපා. ඔය දාන්න. මේ ඔෆිස් එකේ මල් පාත්තියෙන් ගෙනල්ලා මල් පිටවන්න එපා ගෙදර. ඒක කරන්න එපා. ඔෆිස් එක ලස්සනට තියෙන්න ඕන. ගෙදරට වඩා ඇයි? ඔයා වැඩි පුරින් ඔෆිස් එකේ. එතන ලස්සන තියෙන්න ඕන. ऑफिस से की गैंग ළමයි ඩ්‍රීම් ළමයි කියලා බල මේව කරගන්න එපා. ඒ රිලේෂන්ෂිප් එක ලස්සනට තියෙනවා. ඒ relationship එක ලස්සනට තියෙනවා. ඒ කියන්නේ සමහර ඔෆිස් වල තියෙන culture එක හරි අමුතු culture එකක්. ඒක I don't know whether you are in that culture or not. So there is like we are having girls and boys and ladies and kids who only for this kind of third class relationship. That is not the case, right? Or then team එකක් එක්ක නම් ඉන්නේ ඔෆිස් එකේ. team එකක් එක්ක ඉන්නේ. ඔන්න ඉන්නවා ladies ලා ඉන්නවා, gents ලා ඉන්නවා. ඒ ladies ලා gents ලාත් එක්ක මාන හොඳ relationship එකක්. ඒක මාන ලස්සන හොඳ relationship එකක්. ඒක not so for the marriage, not for the like that thing. ඒක නිකන් හරි casual relationship එකක් නෙවෙයි. ඒක is part of the life. මොකද අම්මගෙන් පස්සේ or wife can have husband can have pasti. Why to pass in team houses? It's a team. Obviously, team and a pick up the more genuine relationship. It can't be a headache. Take a family, it's a umber car. It's part of your life. Because you are spending more time with you. So, someone with the lady boss. What a white time spend in the theatre. But how much of time spend in the 6 seconds? And a one but criteria that arrange a good surrounding around you and enjoy that. Be happy. That's the request. So then you can do miracles. You can do different things. You can do many innovative things. So the here is a very small tank. If you are a big fish, you can do miracles. Big fish in a small tank. Wow. What is the everything? Loku malu you play in the loku tank here. What the tank is loku malu you play. Body tank take a look malu you play the good country to live. If you want to be a big fish in a small tank, this is a super country you can reach. Or America is in the local tank here. Or local money can pull up. It was in that direction. Then, hello, I'll put tank here. You will go country, body country, body money. Puttan look malu pena puluwana, or pena malu. If puttan pena, if you want to do that, you can easily do it. This degree can be capitalized to that level. That is the target. That's it. Remote to presentation.